to start the recording, and then we can go, and you can share your screen and all that jazz.
So simple agenda today. We're gonna have Cello talk a little bit about whys in general, and then we'll go through the GLWA energy program. I've talked a little bit about what we've done, but this is going to be a process kind of to have some discussion around what's happening at other utilities, what we're doing here at GLWA, and then maybe have some discussion about if it aligns with some of the activities at your utility, and then go into reconstructing my program into a more goals-oriented graphic and a goal tree that Mike and I worked on. So last meeting we wanted to create a business process model for GLWA. Well, we had some discussion around that, Cello and I and Mike, and I wasn't really ready for that step yet. So we deconstructed things into a new approach of higher level what the GLWA energy goals are, and we're going to approach developing the business process model that way. So I'll give it over to Cello to just discuss the whys process in general, and how we approach the business process model development.
Okay, this is just, I'm trying to, Scott was asking me, he's got trouble signing in, so this is sort of the situation when we look at how technology can help us with assessing how we do things today, or analyze the as-is situation. We start on the left with the business process performance and business needs, which is really the business process analysis. But then when it comes to looking at how we deal with technology, we can start and say, are we sensing and collecting the right data? Are we managing it properly? Do we have analytical tools in place to provide us insight? And then are we effective in providing decision support? Then that then enhances the capabilities, again, about business process. So it's all about, how we're doing things. So it's kind of a circle that as business needs change and the business process performance management needs change, things kind of go in this kind of continuous improvement thing. Could you go to the next one?
I don't have the next one, Cello.
Okay, then just go with your stuff then. I'll work on sending this stuff to Scott Haskins then.
Okay.
Hey, Cello, one of the things I'd like to emphasize with this is that the starting point of all of it is data. And in many cases, it's a chicken or the egg thing where, which came first. And if we don't have the data to look at, it's not going to be relevant. It can't be relevant as a decision maker. And so in many cases, folks ignore it because the data is not there. Where I've seen, and what I've been bragging on Eric all over, because what he did was manage to pull together all our data, and it's like, oh, it can tell us this, and now it's starting to improve in relevance. But in some cases, you have to spend a good amount of money and just hope that it turns out to be useful data. For instance, we're putting in meters, flow meters where we don't have flow meters. We're putting in energy meters where we don't have energy meters. That costs money.
That's an excellent point. And we can see that in this intelligent water system or technology stack, it starts with having the ability to collect and sense the data. So if we don't have the sensors, for example, in place, then everything up there is built on that. And so that's intentionally why it's sort of at the bottom layer, because it's the foundation. The same thing applies that if, for example, we don't manage the data properly, it's not accessible, or we cannot integrate the systems, that then again, the usefulness of the data is very limited. So, and then if we don't have analytics tools and rules to provide insights, then decision support, then so you're absolutely right. This is a sort of a pyramid that without without having taken care of the lower levels, our abilities on the upper levels are very much limited.
Yeah, and I think this is where I've been operating at GLWA. I've been in this role for a couple of years, and the data collection, management, analytics, this is kind of where I've been living. But so we didn't have business processes in place necessarily in our energy program. We kind of just it wasn't well defined. So now it is valuable for me to get to the higher levels and get out of the lower levels. We have, and I'll walk through some of the data activities we've been doing, data management, analytical activities, but we really need to have that now align better with our goals as an organization. David, do you have a question?
Yeah, hi, Dave Ponder at the Met Council in St. Paul. It's the first chance I've had to join the call, but I'm glad to be here. I'm just really curious about sort of maybe this, I think of it maybe as a notion of triage, right, around your data collection. It's one thing to say you're going to collect data. It's another thing to understand where you want to collect data and where it's important to collect data, right? Because that's one of the things we've run into is there's a crap load of data out there. What data is really important? Where can we actually move the needle in our energy performance? And do we have the data in those places? So I would suggest that even before this sensing and collecting, and maybe this is in this business needs part of the diagram, is it's important to understand where that energy use is, and make sure that your data collection system is, you're prioritizing your data collection, especially if this is an improvement cycle. So start with the things that have the most energy use or the most improvement opportunity, and then kind of then move into these other things and not get lost by having the perfect data management system to collect data on everything. That's something that we've taken away from our work. Done.
Excellent. Yeah, very good. And you can kind of overwhelm yourself with data too. Sometimes if it's not focused, it doesn't have purpose. Josh, you have something to add?
Yeah, I think it kind of leads into the next level, which is you need the team to of data managers, really, I guess, for lack of a better word, to access data, to be able to run queries, to get actual reports that have meaning and can support various efforts. And unless you have that team, I don't think your data, I think it gets to what David just raised. Then it's just data. It's like a giant ocean of data without anyone to really parse it out, ensure that it's quality, and then use it. So, not everybody has an Eric, and so we, and I would say that just having one Eric is a single point of failure as well, because Eric could get hit by a bus and then what, right? So those are all kind of things that come up and they're difficult in times where we're stretched on resources, making the argument that that creating a data team and a subject matter expert team and getting meaning out of that data is competing with crumbling infrastructure and putting out fires. So that's the challenge as I see it.
I like the example of winning the lottery better than if I have bus. But yeah, and I
Well,
think
if you win the lottery, then you're going to fund all our work, right?
that's true. But yeah, I think those are both great examples of challenges we face is we are overwhelmed with data right now, and I am a single resource here. So then you collect all this data, you have time to look at it, then what is it driving? So a lot of what Cello and Mike and I have discussed has helped me understand, like, we don't just get in the weeds with all this data. Bring it up, and what are we trying to accomplish with it? So I'll walk through some. I think in another meeting I kind of showed this, and this is when I took a couple years into the job. I started to look at what is our energy program, and so these are really more tasks than anything else. This isn't a great example of what we're doing, but it's just laying out, here are our different initiatives. The top level is, metering is a huge initiative, efficiency, our tracking our costs, and then our metrics, are covered by a database, our analytics, and then our DTE, interface with our utility provider. But as I get to the end of today's discussion, Mike kind of said, I'd like to see this as more of a goal tree. What are you trying to accomplish? What are the goals of the organization and the goals of the program? So at the end, I'll show you our first stab at converting this into a goal tree. But I just wanted to go through some of the things we're doing here at GLWA, see if anybody else is taking on similar initiatives that maybe we could discuss. So power quality metering has been a huge one, and data, right? If we go back to we're all trying to get this data to understand our system. So we're using a Schneider solution for power monitoring, and that includes just the measurement of energy, but also power quality, any interruptions or small defects in our power feeds, and that can be our own electrical equipment. So we're using these ION 9000, very sophisticated meters on all our facility mains, and then PM 8000s in our large pumps. And the intent is to help us understand electrical issues that we may have in our system. So we have the usage data, which is great for energy management, but it also, if we have equipment failures, if we're experiencing any outages and pump trips, any reliability service problems, we're hoping this is gonna help us. But at this point, we haven't implemented all these processes to analyze all this data. So we're collecting, not spending as much time as we'd want analyzing. So that's something we're working on now. But it does this like waveform capture. So down here is just the AC, voltage, and if there's interruptions, these can pick that up. So it may be an interruption from our utility, or it might be an interruption from one of our motors malfunctioning. And I don't want to be a sales pitch for Schneider or anything, but this is we've invested a lot of money. Part of that is their software is called Power Monitoring Expert. So we're upgrading that system. You have one line where you can see real-time energy usage. It also has this cool thing that's disturbance direction detection. So if there's one of those blips in the electrical service, like we saw, here's a graphic from their sample PME system where here this meter says there's a disturbance downstream. These meters also see the disturbance. They say it's upstream, and ultimately it's like particular load is the one that has an issue. Then alongside that, we have our different facilities projects to get these meters installed. So this, I am reusing this presentation from another presentation, but I wanted to open that up to say, is anybody else looking at doing sub-metering at their facilities, extending metering, doing this power quality? I don't know if this is something that many other people are doing, this power quality waveform capture metering. So I wanted to open it up to see what anybody has to add. And I see Jim has his hand up.
Hey, Eric, this is James Halden with WSSC. How you doing?
Hi. Good.
So I had a question. So it sounds like all of this is kind of like retrofit stuff, as you know, at the right spot, the right pump station, based on criticality and all, you know, whatever you determine. Are you guys doing anything for like your standard designs and your any procedural change and design document change to implement this in either new facilities or, you know, a larger, you know, refurbishment project or anything like that?
Yeah, we have our engineering team is on board, and they understand that any new electrical gear going in will have these meters in. So the 9000s are standardized for the utility speed, and 8000 on those major loads. So most of the work is retrofit, but one of our water treatment plants is undergoing a full rehab, and extensive metering is being put in under that construction project.
Okay, thank you.
And for the most part, you know, we're focused on those major loads, the pumping units, but in some cases we're looking at doing smaller sub-metering too, just to understand our energy usage. In some ways, that's our biggest opportunity for energy efficiency, smaller loads, because it's difficult to reduce the power consumption on our large pumps without major CIP work.
Josh Newman had his hand up.
Yeah, we're piloting anyway, and I think this is in progress. And the person who's doing it is, of course, not on the call, so it probably loses a little in translation. But we're applying to our influent pump station, and I believe there may be one or two other pump stations, but large pumps, and these are wastewater pumps. So using sub-metering, and then GE's C-Sense, which is I think it's an analytics tool on top of that, and we're starting with just wire to water efficiency, you know, so that we can see where pumps are performing. You know, I think the way that they do it is they have a theoretical efficiency, and then they compare to that, and it's a way. It's being implemented in the group that does condition assessment. So the goal here is to try to do predictive pump predictive maintenance for the pumps. But I mean, that data is there for all variety of reasons. And I think the next element to that would be to layer in sort of the manufacturer's pump performance curves to be able to see where the pump is performing relative, you know, how its performance degrades relative to best efficiency point and such. So that's something that we're doing. Yeah.
So is that implemented now, or is it in process?
It's in process. So I think right now they're, and this is, you know, we have an engineer who's kind of been assigned to develop the data analytics part, and C-Sense seems to be the direction that they're going. So I'm not sure where they're at with that. They have the sub-metering is in, and so we're able to see that. And then we also use iFix, which is a GE compatible solution that gives us the data. And so we have iFix for all of our plant operations. It's, that's the INC part. And then, so we can get flow out of that. We can get all sorts of other metering out of that. And then what else? What was I going to say? Oh, historian is where that data gets captured. It gets, and then of course, we have those historian files then have to get to get sort of exported to a point. This is the weeds, by the way. If you haven't noticed, we're there. We're in it. So I'll stop there. But all right, I'll stop there. If you have any other questions, you can let me know.
Okay.
We have a couple of more hands up. One, Scott Haskins, and I think has had his hand for a while. And
yeah, Eric and actually Josh too. This is real impressive. I was wondering, you mentioned data analytics. Just curious, maybe this can be later in your presentation, Eric, but how you might be using the data that you're collecting, from sub-meters, and how you're, what kind of benefits you're seeing.
Yep, I will. I'll have a few examples of what I'm doing with the data.
Good.
And David Ponder?
Yeah, I was just gonna. Of our electrical distribution system, we're putting in Schweitzer motor control relays and power meters and things like that, and using Schweitzer as a platform. We're not necessarily connecting it back to our historian, which is a problem, and we're only doing it at the unit substation level. We're only going so far down in the plant distribution system. And so that presents challenges for us from an energy management perspective, because, understanding what's below that meter and what equipment is there is, it's a blind spot for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I had in here. So, but our wastewater facility, they've been aggressive prior to me being in this position of getting meters in. So they have hundreds of meters actually in, and but even that is at a pretty high level of the loads, and it's still not even close to what you could meter here. I mean, this is a tremendously large facility with tons of processes. So where to stop metering is a discussion we've had before, because at some point it isn't cheap, and then if we're not even fully utilizing the important data, when are we going to worry about the light switches and stuff? So that's the metering side, which I think if you talk energy management, that is that's where you have to start, right? You can't manage anything without the data. The first page of CEM manual is data. It's all about the data. So that's been a major priority for us. Let me move ahead. And one of the other things that we've had, we've got.
Eric, can I ask one other quick question?
Sure.
Are you guys making use of power data off of other devices like VFDs or anything like that?
Yeah, we do have like our multi-lens, our motor protection. In some cases, everything's connected to our control system, which is Ovation. So our Ovation control system has all the devices in there. Whether or not we're capturing energy usage off of that device is a thing, that because we have tons of meters that aren't connected to Ovation, which should be. They might just be old and it's a meter sitting on equipment that's not integrated. And then we have a ton of devices that'll give us energy data, which can at least help with the management side. Yep. But we don't have that actually should be part of the metering plan, is getting data that's available into some system. Yep.
Do all of your VFDs have that capability? Is that something that you spec for VFDs, that they have the ability to output power?
VFDs, modern VFDs are going to be able to, you're going to be able to interface with. And
Okay.
we Modbus is a major protocol here. So, and that's pretty industry standard. So you typically can get all kinds of data off of all kinds of equipment. It's just a matter. That's another resource challenge here. Is our SCADA team is probably could be 5 times the size that it is to keep up with the amount of equipment and data that's available, and those guys are stretched.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a breakdown for us is, you know, in the sort of when we, you know, commission a system or something like that, you know, one of the things we're working towards is making sure that energy management is part of that conversation in terms of like, what are the tags that are getting pulled off the devices, right? Like, so, I mean, we're pulling information off these devices for control, right? But the device has the ability to provide other information that's useful for energy management. Our challenge is getting, you know, be there as part of that conversation in terms of deciding what information is getting pulled off the device.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine like so constant speed devices, then if you don't have the VFD, is it similar like that you have a motor starter bucket that has some sort of power monitoring device in it and you have to spec that, or is it, I don't know how that would work.
We use you know, most of our motors will have a motor protection device, and they vary in age, but those, you know, those will trip the motor if there's any, you know, danger to the equipment. And even old motor protection devices will have energy that you can see on the device. It's a matter of can it communicate to control system, can it be integrated, all those things.
Great, but are you getting just amps off of that, or are you getting
Kilowatts,
kW also?
You can get voltage and amps and kW typically, and power factor a lot of times.
Yeah. So when we're getting that information, again, what gets, you know, the default is, well, maybe we'll get motor speed in amps, but we won't get all the rest of the kind of the data elements that you might want from an energy management lens off those devices. So plenty of work to do, right?
And for the energy management side, kilowatts is usually all I'm looking for. I'm just to see what power is being used.
Yeah, but my takeaway here from what David's saying is you have to have an energy management team. You have to have people that are focused on this, and they have to be present at the conversation when the devices are being added to your system, when the equipment's being added, so that you can get that programming done, so that you get and whatever telemetry you need in order to get that information out.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Those are again, we can get overwhelmed with data real quickly, because then we can get all those things, and we need to have the focus on using the data with some distinct goals in mind. Real quick, I will bring up that we have our utility DTE. They have provided an on-site energy manager, which has been a huge help for us. And one of the things that he's helped me with further analytics and normalizing data, looking at our energy efficiency versus production, so that we can do year over year tracking and performance. And he's working within a structure that DTE has of certain deliverables, and what they've brought in is an energy toolbox where we're trying to define some energy reduction goals. So this is from the Excel toolbox that DTE uses. So we have a 3% energy reduction goal. What is done is identified projects that are going on and potential projects. So those projects are being evaluated for, these ones are in process, but then our potential projects, we'll go through and see how much energy savings, how much cost savings would be associated with them, estimate the cost to perform them, and start to do an evaluation of which projects we'll do. These are right now, these are lower level, like smaller projects that we can do under our operations and maintenance budgets, things of that nature. But then we'll put in those bigger projects that are driven by our CIP, and use those projects as examples to go into our efficiency. So that's been a big help to us. I don't know if water and wastewater utilities are huge customers for the electrical providers. So I don't know if this is available all over the country, but DTE, provides this for several. I know before we got our energy manager, I knew that GM had a resource from DTE. So is that something that any other utilities have available or utilized?
Yeah, we have something similar, but go ahead, David.
No, go ahead, Josh. I want to hear from you guys because we don't have it and I want to get it.
Right. Well, I don't know if it's as quite as sophisticated, but we do have because we get funded through the Energy Trust of Oregon, which is it's run by the state, and Energy Trust then has consultants that come out and really work with your team, and they provide a similar sort of system for being able to evaluate and identify projects, identify low-hung fruit. They do this thing called treasure hunting, so we'll go through and walk the tunnels and find focusing on different areas of the plant and go through that. We set energy reduction goals through that, and there's a similar sort of spreadsheet that, and then we get compensated for the energy that we're saving. So there's any investments that we make, then we get some compensation for after we can prove that we've lowered our demand with these projects.
So what we have here is Xcel Energy is our primary utility serving most of the plants. We participate in what Xcel calls their process efficiency program. We have an ongoing MOU with them to sort of participate in the program. What that enables us to do is sort of streamline some of the rebate and energy study processes, but we don't have this sort of soup to nuts kind of version of this. Any kind of on-site assessments or energy audits that we want to do, we have to initiate with Xcel. There are consultants that they make available. We could use our own consultants, but this notion of an on-site energy manager is not something that we've seen with them. I think it's something that we can, and it's something we've thought about approaching them about. So I would love to, any kind of like MOU documentation or scope of services that you guys can share with what your utilities or, Energy Trust is, it's the same thing, right? It's just the funding source is, in Oregon, they do a third-party administrator instead of the utility administrating the efficiency programs. But anything like that you guys can share, we'd love to see.
Okay, I can definitely share that. Yeah, it's a program that DTE actually approached us with in the end, which was great. And he's been a great resource for me, just because we are understaffed and everything else. To just have another person keeping their eyes on this stuff is very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we backed it out before. I mean, we contribute about $1 million a year into the state, into Excel's, we call it the Conservation Improvement Program, or SIP funding. And, at best, we're getting, $250,000 back in a year through energy studies or rebates or something like that. So we have the option in Minnesota to self-direct this funding. So, and it's not uncommon with these state programs to be able to self-direct those efficiency dollars. There's usually a provision in the state statute that allows you to do that. It's not somewhere we've gone yet, because I think it would be more helpful to continue the partnership. But it's sort of the kind of thing that we can point to when we go to the utility and say, hey, we need, so you guys are self-directing your dollars. So yeah, that's something to understand what other utilities are doing in terms of that. Would be really interesting to hear.
I want to just bump Eric's effort up a bit here. And I'm sorry, Eric, but Eric also has many different personality quirks, which would make him very painful for any other utility who ever wanted to hire him. I will go into it at length if you want to ever interview him. We had some previous energy people who did not have the right personality set for successful engagement with teams and people. I'll leave it at that with a brief pause for that to sort of sink in. So DTE's had this program for a while. Some of the larger energy users in the state, basically the big three automobile manufacturers and one of the hospital chains, has a DTE fund. And I think there's a few other secondary manufacturers to the big three automobile folks. But I mean, so big energy users that would every year max out or come close to maxing out their energy efficiency dollars. The limit's like $1 million, or it might be 1.3 million. I think, Eric, is it? Or it's
million for electric, 300,000 for gas.
So yeah, 1.3 total, and they're like bumping up there. The previous occupier of the position that Eric's now holding didn't. You have to have institutional trust and a decent relationship. I mean, and so clearly the energy provider needs to, provide good energy. They don't always do that. But if you come in with shotguns firing, it doesn't play well. They can just say, we're not going to bother with it. Now, there's clearly things that they can do to improve. So that's what Eric's talking about, the power meters, is the upstream and the downstream. Downstream is on us. We do something, oh shoot, like some of our VFDs, as he was mentioning. Upstream is another utility or another something or other up there can be a problem, and that's really DTE's responsibility. If you don't have the data, you can't even approach them, but it also just helps to just play nice with others. And so Eric's been done a really good job with that. He basically was like, oh, sure, when they approached us, and yeah, we have it. But if it weren't for his engagement previous to that, they wouldn't have reached out. I will now put myself on mute again.
So using the data, so I got a few slides of what I've been putting together on the data. So I built an energy database because when we were in the weeds earlier, sometimes it's hard when the data's a little out of your control. It's available, but it's out of your control. So I tried to get all the data into my control and into a way I can use it best and not rely on other people. So the DT website is one source. We're actually scraping off half-hour data and putting it into this database. So we have the billing DT half-hour data. Ovation is our control system. I'm pulling the data, and that gives us more data into the multi-lins, into the device data that even non-energy data like flows and things like that. The StructureWare is the PME system. Our billing system, we have our bills sent to Capturus, who is a third-party processor and they scan the bills. They have their own system that then they pull out the kilowatts and the dollars and all that stuff, which is very helpful to our finance group. And then I'm able to capture data from that too, and all that I'm putting into a SQL Server and using Power BI to report out on. So this could be done a million different ways, but I think everybody should be kind of thinking about how to control the energy data, how to kind of put all these pieces together in order to do the analytics that we need to do in the analysis. So Power BI is the platform I'm doing my reporting out. So this.
Hey, Eric, does Capturus actually pay our bills, or do we pay them and they just direct us to? That's a question.
No, they also pay them. Yep, okay. They also pay them. Yep.
And Power BI, is Power BI working well for you? Because that's an option for us as well. And we've been looking at Dream Report, and it's just been complicated as heck to try to do that work.
I like Power BI. So I didn't use Power BI before being in this position. It took me a little understanding to it likes data in a certain way, but it's able to handle a good amount of data, and the presentation's pretty decent. You're able to put some things together pretty quickly, pretty useful things together pretty quickly, but it doesn't have every bell and whistle. But in my old role, we had a team of people. We were able to do some cool analytics, but we had a team of people. So Power BI is a good solution for having a one-man team doing it. Keith,
does it extract the data like automatically, or does somebody have to run through there and cut and paste things into a file?
So it depends on what your source is, but you can connect to Excel. I'm connected to SQL Server, and then we have a Power BI server, and on that server you can have it automatically update, for example. So I have an automatic process that's grabbing data over here, putting it into my database, and then Power BI has an automatic thing that is updating off of that database. But you can do the same thing even in Excel. I mean, we've put together like our rebates. I track it just in Excel, and I put together a Excel connection, and then same thing. It can run every day, and it'll read that file and update your report. Keith?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that our data analytics group is using Power BI. There was a tool that they had before that was kind of a legacy tool, and I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but they pretty much replaced that now with Power BI, and all of our reports are being run on that. Are you guys, our big issue is really submetering. We don't have the submetering we need to be able to determine energy efficiency of processes and individual motors and things like that. Well, not individual motors, but individual processes more is what I'm thinking about. Like in the wastewater plants, we may have 5 trains, and we have one blower that serves all 5 trains. So we don't really know if we make a change to the process, how much we're going to reduce energy on that blower, right? Is that a problem that you guys are running into?
Were you a little late to the meeting? So I started off by talking about metering, and so
I must have missed that. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. No, it's a major initiative, and that's you need that foundation, right, for any of this stuff. So it's not as easy as you would think.
It's not. That's what we're running into too. Is it's very hard to get those submeters put in.
Yeah, it's you get into where CTs and PTs are available, what you're piggybacking off of, and that even networking. The meters we use are network Cat 5, and just they're not always network cables available, conduit available. When you start running in new conduit and stuff, it's expensive. Yeah, it's costly. So it has to be supported, and luckily, coming in, it's had support under organizationally, but that can ebb and flow. We're doing our water treatment plants, so 3 different water treatment plants, and it was 66 meters in total. So we had organizationally, we had initiatives to meter this stuff, and then it went to our board for $1.7 million to meter these 3 plants. And they said, why do we need to meter these plants? So those things ebb and flow a little bit, at least here. So jump on it if you can. If you when
Yeah,
you
yeah. I
have,
mean, it's definitely something that we are trying to incorporate into all of our new projects. It's just that it's a very, with 75 pump stations and 5 wastewater treatment plants and 2 water treatment plants. It's a hard thing to, it's not something you can do quickly, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
no, and I don't know if you're here for that the discussion around some of the other instrumentation. Is maybe you have a motor protection device, or maybe you have a VFD, and it might be a lot faster to try to integrate that, try to get the energy data off of that.
Yeah, we do have, I mean, our guys, our energy management guys have a database that they track all that stuff in, and we get a lot of the data from SCADA and other places. So anyway, just thought I just wanted, sorry I missed that first part of the
Oh no, that's it.
Of the system. So
but there may be opportunity, yeah, to more of the SCADA direction. If you're just looking for energy usage, it may be worth taking another look at some instrumentation that's out there, whether or not power data is available. Might be a lot faster. So I think so just like that, sub-metering. First, this is about costs. So this is a Power BI report I put together for our wastewater plant, shows our energy usage and how it relates to dollars. So the way our tariff works, we have on and off peak. So the red bars, this is all half increments. The red bars are on peak. So this costs, this kilowatt costs about 20% more than in the black bars. And then we have the highest on peak of the month. Value is charged as our demand charge. So this half hour right here, the 22 megawatts, this is this number, and that's at about $16 per kilowatt. So that 1/2 hour, $360,000. That this is during this month, so the month is over, but this will be 40 to 45% of our monthly bill will be that highest half hour of the month. David?
What's the data source? Is this your plant meters, or is this utility meter data? And then if it's utility meter data, are you getting it next day's real time, end of the month?
So this is using our data, our real time. That's kind of, I have 5-minute data for our meters. So this is the most recent 5 minutes, shows you that you're off peak. Here's the last 5 minutes, and that was the demand in the last 5 minutes. But the meter, the billing data we get from DTE is next day I get it, and it's half hour increments. But the correlation between our meter and DTE's is 100. I mean, it's perfect. So the data's yeah. That's not always the case, but at this location, we're right on. So this is accurately depicts what our bill is.
What is the demand charge? What's the increment for the peak demand? Is it like a rolling 15-minute?
It's the half hour. It's
you guys
on the
are half hour.
Every half hour, and it's just the kilowatts for that half hour.
Yeah, yep. Ours is a little more. Ours is peak 15 minutes in every 5 minutes. On the 15 minutes, so it'll look back at the previous 3 15-minute periods in that 15-minute period, and then it'll be the peak of those 15 minutes. We'll set the 15-minute peak.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a cost one. This is sub-metering. So this is at the wastewater plant. I said we had a bunch of meters, so I've grouped those meters into processes over here. So that you can see the processes basically stack up. And then each one of these processes may encompass multiple meters. So this over here is kind of like a pie chart, but it's for each individual meter. But then this took a little understanding to get these processes together. And then really what we're looking at here is correlation between our flows and our energy usage and opportunities for energy efficiency around that, because there's a certain amount you can't. Yes.
Josh has a question, if this comes from Power BI.
This is also Power BI. Yep. And it does take, a little data architecture, organization. It doesn't come straight out of our data system that's organized, but with a little work you can organize.
So Eric, did you build all of these yourself, or did you have other resources within the utility to help build this?
I built these myself. Yeah, we have Power BI people in the organization that help me learn Power BI and help me with the data collection process to get it in the database. And then here's another example. Now I'm bringing in flow data along with pumping data. So this is just a water booster station, and the different colored bars are the energy usage per pump, and then this black line is the flow out of the station. So this is flow and energy. Down here is energy and energy intensity. So how many kilowatts is it taking us to pump 1 million gallons, basically? So you can see when we're performing poorly. So here our flow rate is down here, but our energy usage is up here. That's indicated on this one that our energy intensity is really high. So these can feed into how to avoid those situations being on peak. There are sometimes processes that are unavoidable, that we have to be inefficient, but I guess we're using this drive when we're inefficient, make sure we're not at least on peak and it's not costing us more. So I know that I think we've talked a little bit. People are trying to put this data together. Do you guys have some flow, power put together? Looking at intensity, looking at on-off peak, any? And we are running. I knew this would probably take some time, but we are running short on time too. But if anybody has anything to add,
you're living the dream. I mean, this is what we want to get to, but have hard enough time. Part of it is so we're wastewater, but part of the issue is lift stations are on a different SCADA system than the plant SCADA, and I just can't even get the data in a database. Like, it can't.
Right. Well, don't think that this happened overnight for us at GLWA, because it was 6 to 12 months just getting those problems solved, getting the data in one place where then we can report off of it.
Scott has his hand up. I just want to mention there was a really good note from Josh Newman about the complicating factor, analytics tool. So if you have any thoughts like that, please put them in the chat line so we can reuse these thoughts and think about them between Eric and Arnett and Scott and I, to kind of, so these thoughts that are really good don't get lost. So if you have something like that, just put it in the chat line because we'll have a record of it. So sorry, Scott.
Yeah, Eric, maybe earlier in one of the other meetings, you had talked about the challenges with the operators. What does your journey look like in that regard, using this great information?
Well, we have some traction, but then in some cases, the operators are responsible for operating the system, right? So their overarching goal is making sure that water's delivered and water's treated. I think this helped at WRF. I know they are aware and use this report to some extent, and you even see some patterns of where you know, the peak periods are the low period in this, you know, this time frame. So getting awareness has been my goal, is bringing the awareness of how the tariff works. There was a lot of confusion about that when I stepped in here. People didn't really understand how we were billed and things like that. So at the water treatment plants, where we're kicking off next month, meeting with those operators on a monthly basis to review these types of reports and getting that knowledge out there and start to drive energy. That's more of the cost stuff. That's more of the cost side of things.
Those troughs are impressive. Are you thinking you might be able to bring it down further?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit.
Those troughs that you have are impressive. Are you thinking you might be able to bring those down further?
Hard to say. I think maybe those are our bottom of our process. So now those troughs could be lowered with some energy efficiency effort. Like one of the things the DTE energy managers brought up is the air system. So here the air system uses almost a megawatt, and those are notoriously inefficient. So like the treasure hunt here, could we look at the air system, walk the air system, look for leaks, and any of those types? Those are overarching efficiency things. But I think this is probably as low as we're going to go without doing energy efficiency measures.
Is that a new trough, or did that exist previously? Were you able to monetize the savings you achieved?
I haven't done that. I'll put it on my list.
No, it's impressive. It's impressive.
Well, that's a really interesting question, because one of the stuff that we've gotten back from Cheryl Porter, our supervisor, is do not monetize savings, because then the board says, great, what are you going to do next? And it's like, well, what the heck? I mean, it's like, because the underlying thing is we're providing water, we're providing wastewater services. We can't have that as a cost driver. That's another reason for this overarching conversation that we're having here, is how to move that without jeopardizing goals of operations. Here's another one. Let's say we have a situation where our peak and our off peak are really, really different. So peak shaving, bringing down the big demands like this to get these troughs, let's say they were peaks because they're during the afternoon or so, and there's maybe a big demand for water or whatever. If we can shave that peak and shift it, we might have exactly the same amount of energy demand, but it would cost us a lot less. Well, guess what? The folks that are interested in the emissions side of energy, specifically greenhouse gas emissions, they may not find that to be useful or cool at all. But from a cost point, it's a huge driver. That's why there's three main pillars that are completely distinct from each other: is emissions, the efficiency side of things, power efficiency, power reliability, and then cost. And they are just not. There is no alignment between those, but it's all the same stuff. It's energy.
And being mindful of time, we're down to the last couple minutes. We can pick up next meeting, cover some more of this. I don't have really too much more. I don't know if anybody could volunteer to maybe bring some information about their utility. Next meeting, we could have some time, and also I'll finish up next meeting with the goal tree that we were working on for GLWA, and bringing this. We're down in the weeds. This was in the weeds conversation today, which I think is great because it's pertinent to all of us. But that we do need to start looking at what does this data mean as far as our organizational goals. So a call for volunteers. Anybody, David, Josh, anybody want to bring something to the table next meeting?
I can. We've been working on sort of reimagining at a sort of a high level what we think about as our energy management system and our approach to energy management. And I think it would serve the conversation well in terms of as we think about this as a business process. I think that I've got some slides already put together that might help that I can just recycle for this conversation, and I think it'll help others see how we're thinking about sort of systemizing our approach to energy management. So I'd be willing to do that.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Eric, and thanks everybody for great conversation. We'll get our heads together and get back to you with some summary notes. Let me just stop the recording and